needs your help again. Yeah, he's got himself in a terrible jam way down yonder in Vietnam. So put down your books and pick up a gun. Gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die.
Originally, I had been told that spread of communism, that if we didn't stop it there, then it was going to spread throughout the world. And I must have believed that concept. Plus the unquestioning of that my country had called upon me to do this job, and I was obligated to do it.
Many people have stated it was not a war, it was an engagement. But if it was an engagement, I didn't see 50,000 soldiers with diamond rings on their fingers.
The Vietnam veteran is unique in American history. This program will try to explain why.
My name is Roy Seeger. I was with 1st and the 84th Artillery, 2nd and the 60th Infantry in 68, 69, and early in 70.
My name is Jim Maddox, and I was in Vietnam from July 1968 until into May 1969, and I served as a field corpsman with 2nd Battalion, 9th Marines, 3rd Marine Division, Gulf Company.
My name is Richard Cueva. I was with 11th Marines, Whiskey Battery, in the I Corps in the years of 68, 69.
My name's Philip Elkins. I got to Vietnam in June 66. I was with the Preventive Medicine Unit in An Khê with the 1st Cav from 66 to June 67.
Larry Brooks. I was in the 9th Division, 2nd of the 60th Infantry, Charlie Company. I went to Vietnam on February 10th, 1968.
How old were you when you got to Vietnam?
18.
I was 21 when I arrived in Vietnam, one of the older ones.
I was 18 when I got to Vietnam.
Just turned 20.
I was 19 years old.
Why did you go to Vietnam?
I got my orders, and I more or less didn't question it. I didn't know what I was going towards. I had nothing to equate it with or parallel it with, so I didn't have the fear of going because I didn't know what I was going into. So without this fear, I figured that everything was going to be okay. I did imagine that I was going to be in a nice, clean, white hospital on a white beach with palm trees. I couldn't have been more wrong.
I went to Vietnam because I came down on the critical MOS list in Germany after I'd been there for 6 months, and they said my MOS was badly needed, and I was sent to Vietnam.
I was drafted. I didn't know how to get out of it.
Well, it was a combination of a lot of things. It was really the reasons have to do with why I was in the Army to begin with. Once I was in the Army, I didn't really have any choice about going to Vietnam. But I was going to school in freshman year in college and junior college. Was kind of tired of going to school and just kind of dropped out and got reclassified 1A and got drafted.
Well, because I'm an American, I've always been proud to be an American. And in the 60s, it was a patriotic thing to do, was to stop the communist threat. The domino theory, call it what you want, but it was a threat to our security, supposedly. It's something I believed in then, and even though I was only 17, I believed it strong enough that I made a commitment.
Once you were there, was it like you imagined it was going to be?
When I got in country, I realized that the whole thing was completely disorganized. There was no unified effort. And I knew it was just a matter of taking care of yourself. There was nobody there that really cared about what you were doing as far as yourself was concerned. It was just a matter of survival.
I was always a war buff when I was a kid growing up, having little soldiers and reading Combat and Sergeant Rock and Easy Company and so on and so forth. And I thought I knew war. My brother was a Marine before me, and he was in Vietnam. My cousin was a Marine before me, and he died in Vietnam. And so I knew that had a lot of realities that I was going to face. And once I got there, yeah, it was what I expected. It just more real than I expected it. You read about it, but it was firsthand. You know, you didn't read the zing zing in the comic books. All of a sudden, you were hearing zing zing coming by you. It was real, and it was something that all of a sudden I'm confronted with. Wow, reality, a war, death, big guns, big jets, all these. Something that, hey, you know, when you're 17, 18 years old, that's just a fairy tale, like going all of a sudden to the land of Oz, right? You know, all of a sudden you're there and you just read about it before. All of a sudden it's really happening.
No. It not in the least. Even though I was used to seeing, you know, the helmets and dirty fatigues and the explosions on TV, the fiction, even though those objects were there, they were not in any way like TV or movies had caused me to imagine it to be. It was totally different. I had never felt the fear or the traumatic emotion that I was feeling at the time in Vietnam from watching a war movie. And without, I mean, you can have the visuals, but without the fear and the traumatic emotional feeling, there's no way that you can understand the situation.
It was totally different from what I had imagined, because if you think back to when you were in school and you saw all of these World War I, World War II, and all of these war movies, and you watch bombs exploding and rounds exploding and everything else, then that's what you visualize before you get there. And then when you actually get there and rounds are coming over your head and then all of a sudden they just stop, and then you don't know when the next one's coming. But when you do encounter fire or anything else, you were either told, hey, you can shoot back or not to fire. And that is not a war.
In a way it was, and in a way it wasn't. It was in a sort of a conceptual sense, you know, getting down behind a dike and shooting at people and having them shoot back at you. You've seen it on TV, and I'd seen John Wayne movies, and like everybody else. But actually getting down there and enduring the hardships of getting shot at and laying in rice paddies all night long with mosquitoes eating you up, being dirty, not eating, not drinking clean water, and then coming back in and having some lifer tell you that you've got to go out the next day or you've got to go out that night again was not really what you think about when you think about war. You think about the glorious times in battle when you're saving somebody or you're doing something great. When you're in it, it's nothing like that. It's just bad news.
When did you realize we weren't going to win?
Anywhere from a few hours to a couple of days, because the minute I got off the plane, they were trying to overrun the air base that I landed at, and we were told to hit the berm, but not to shoot back. And that doesn't sound right for a war that you're trying to win.
Yeah, I knew that with all the men they have there and all the equipment, all the guns and the bombs and the airplanes, we weren't really fighting to win. I knew that right away. The day I got there. The day I got there was chaos.
I think that the first couple of months in the field really changed my attitudes. When I got there and saw myself walking in a line of soldiers and going through a rice paddy and seeing people starting to get blown up around me because of booby traps and bodies flying around and getting blown off the dike, helicopters coming in, getting shot at. All of a sudden you take a few sniper rounds and you're starting to get hit. I think what happened is that I realized in the first couple of months that my perceptions of the war were wrong, in that before I thought that we were there to defend South Vietnam from the north. And I realized that the people that we were fighting were not North Vietnamese necessarily. In some cases they were, but they were South Vietnamese that had lived there all their lives, and we were the invaders. And when that realization dawned on me, then I questioned everything, and I realized that my main goal from that point on was just to get out of there and get home, hopefully in one piece.
I realized it when I started coming in contact with the Vietnamese people. You couldn't win or you couldn't lose. It's something that they'd been doing for hundreds of years, and for all I know, centuries. They were fighting the French. Before that, they were fighting the Japanese. Before that, they were fighting the Chinese. And before that, they were fighting the Cambodians. And before that, they were fighting each other. And they've always been fighting. Their children don't know anything but fighting. And even after we left, I knew that they were still going to be fighting. And they still are.
It seemed like as soon as I got there, even though you're fresh and your skin's still clean and your uniform's new, and you're more or less what we used to call a boot to the situation, or a newcomer, it seemed like immediately I became involved in the collective consciousness, and I just rolled along. And I don't remember thinking, well, we got to win this war, or really anything along those lines. All I knew is that I wanted to survive it and get out of there.
What was your homecoming like?
I had a tragic homecoming. I had personal family problems when I arrived that were maybe indirectly due to my being in Vietnam, maybe not, I'm not sure, but my worst problems were not being able to relate to anybody about the experience I'd been through. And this is from day one when I arrived till practically now, 12 years later. It was just hush-hush in my family, with my peers. I remember a couple of brief arguments with a couple of uncles, World War II vintage, that, you know, I would try to stress a point and they didn't want to hear it. And and after a very short argument, I usually wouldn't even continue the subject anymore. But mostly it was a very cold, not really cold, but just no one knew how to act towards me, and I didn't know how to act towards them.
It's pretty bleak. Pretty bleak. We got home at Norton Air Force Base in San Bernardino. Must have been about noon. They marched us out of the airplane. Must have been about 180 of us, 200 of us. Made us stand in line, go through customs, hurry us up, hurry up, take this out, and hurry up, fill this up, hurry up. And probably within about 2 hours of our landing, we were out in the street, and we had to catch a bus. Well, personally, I had to catch a bus, go to Los Angeles. I had to buy my ticket to get a plane to get home, and finally got home about midnight. Took me 12 hours to get from one airport to the next, and just my mother and my little brother were there to greet me, and that was all. It was kind of sad that that's all the thanks I got, was just a hug and a hug from my mother and from my brother. But it's probably the best one that anyone could have had. You know, it would have been nice to have a parade and at least have someone say, "Thank you, Rich. Thank you for what you did." But really, no one wanted to thank me. At that time, no one wanted to thank us, except good old Mom.
I remember I was so excited that I was going to come home. And when I got home, I think we went to Travis Air Force Base. And I remember how disappointed I was that they took away our uniforms and gave us these new, shiny, bright new uniforms, because they didn't fit right, and they didn't represent what I'd been through. And then we immediately went in a taxi and went to the airport, and I was anonymous, and nobody knew anything. It was a long time ago, you know. It was the beginning of the war, really, 66, and I got back in 67. I got out of uniform as quick as I could. As soon as I got to the airport, I went in my civilian clothes and felt skinny and bald-headed because they made us cut our hair short. And I tried to blend in as quick as I could. And as far as getting back to my family and everything, it was an adjustment for me, and they were happy I survived, but there was nothing to be proud of as far as I survived, you know. That was it. I was lucky I survived.
When we left Vietnam in the early part of '70, we were sent back to Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. After being there for 2 weeks, there was no reception. Even the military people who had not been to Vietnam were turning away from us. They would hardly talk to us. And it was like they didn't even care, because they did not have to put up with what we did. There was no homecoming.
It was strange. I had 2 homecomings. I went to Vietnam, and 4 months later I came home on burial duty for my best friend who was in another unit up north. I was down in the Delta, who had been killed. And that was a real strange situation, because when I was in the field that day, I came in and they called my line number over the radio and sent me back in. I didn't know what I was going back for. I got to Saigon, and finally they told me that this buddy of mine had been killed and that I was going back to the States. My first thought was, man, I'm not coming back here. But I went back, and all I did was go to a funeral and saw a bunch of parents crying, and saw what was going on in the States, and it was such a drastic change, because I was 3 days out of the field and standing at my best friend's funeral back home. And then I finally went back after being AWOL in the States and for about 9 or 10 days. Finally got drunk enough to get back on the airplane and went back. But when I got home, it was subdued. That's the only way I can describe the homecoming. I was glad to see everybody, and I had high expectations of finally being able to put that behind me. But I found that people really didn't want to talk about the war, and for me, those were the only experiences I'd had for the last 12 months, and I didn't really have anything else that I could talk about. So it was like going home from any place else. It was like you were expected just, if you'd been away on vacation for a while, maybe you'd been in Europe or whatever it is, and you come home, everybody says, hi, glad to see you, what are you going to do now? They don't want to know about what you've been doing.
How would you classify the United States soldiers in Vietnam?
Vietnam soldier was, in my mind, a very brave person, for the mere fact that he could endure an experience or situation like that. I don't mean brave as far as slaughtering gooks, or how he could stop from snapping his mind at what he was seeing and experiencing. I don't mean brave that way. I mean brave in that he could survive emotionally that experience.
I thought they were young, you know. I was young. When I look back, I look at pictures, I think, God damn, they were kids. They were as good as any soldiers, you know. There was not any reason to fight except to survive. You know, we had these M16s. I had a 14, because I got there real early. But everybody wanted to trade me my 14 for their 16. And it was just a matter of not being ambushed, you know, not being sniped, not stepping on the wrong places. It wasn't a matter of how good you could fight. It was really basically how well you can hear, how well you can dodge.
I think the Vietnam soldier was the hippest soldier of any war, by far. The Vietnam soldier was more well-educated, knew what was going on, was better informed than any other soldier in any other war. And when he came home, he had more knowledge, if he survived, about reality than I think that soldiers of other wars. I don't know, it depends. Every soldier in every war has different jobs. Some of them have, whether it be World War II or Korea, some people had it better than others, and the same is true of Vietnam. But the one thing about Vietnam is that the soldier, you know, was supposed to do a 12-month trip down in Nam, and got to go home. So he supposedly had it easier than the guy in World War II who was in for the duration. Doesn't matter if it was practically impossible to survive in some units for more than 12 months. But I think the main difference in Vietnam is that the soldiers in other wars knew what they were fighting for and believed in what they were fighting for. And that gives you a little extra strength, a lot of extra strength, when you're out there and doing battle with the enemy. But when you're in a war that you don't believe in, that you know is wrong, and that you still have to go out and do your duty. You're doing a lot more than soldiers in other wars because you're carrying that with you into battle. And so the Vietnam soldier has nothing to hang his head down about because he endured more in a lot of ways, especially psychologically, than any other soldier.
Now, soldiers, they were devoted fellows. Let me tell you, there were most of them were the same age I was, 18, and when you get a bunch of 18-year-old gung-ho kids together, we put out 100%, and more than that. We really did believe in what we were doing, and you couldn't have found a better bunch of kids.
The best in the nation. Because the soldiers in Vietnam were survivors and fighters, as to where the other wars that we had, everybody was just fighters. They were fighting for a cause. But we weren't fighting for a cause, we were surviving.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to other Vietnam vets?
Well, I know what frustrates me more than anything else in the world is that people don't understand who I am and what I'm going through now. Right now, it's more of a physical problem than emotional. I guess I was around a lot of chemicals, a lot. I was spraying a lot of chemicals. DDT, malathion, sprayed with Agent Orange, and I'm dizzy. I'm almost dizzy all the time. I'm tired, and I feel weak, and I get irritated easily and frustrated, and angry, and confused, and it's difficult for me to concentrate. Those are the things I'm trying to deal with. And the hardest thing is trying to deal in everyday society when people don't realize that you have these difficulties, and they don't accommodate. They don't want to hear it.
I was never ashamed of what I did. I never will be ashamed of what I did. I'm kind of proud of what I did because I experienced it. I saw it, I felt it, I tasted it, and it's something that I can always relate to other people, to my children and their children, and when it comes down for them to do their own decisions, I can at least give them input firsthand. I can say, this is what I saw, this is what I did, this is what I experienced, while some people, all they can say is, this is what I've heard. And so I'm proud that I did it, I'm glad that I did it, and I feel that if you did it too, don't ever back away from it. It's an experience you did. It's just like being a father or being whatever you want to be. That anything that you've ever felt proud of, you should feel proud of this too, because it's something that you lived, something you experienced, something you'll always hold inside of you, and something that you could always be able to share with others.
It's about time all of the Vietnam veterans that were in Vietnam, anywhere from when it started to when it ended, instead of staying locked up in that closet that we've been in for the last 10, 11, 12 years, it's time to stand up for what we believe, because we went over there supposedly to serve our country. If we went to serve our country, then it's about time our country served us.
To my fellow Vietnam vets, I have to say, hang in there. Some of you I know adjusted. Some of you I know haven't. And, it was a part of our life that I personally felt was taken away from me. A great deal of time I felt was lost, and I've been very bitter about it over the years. All I can say is this simply that you weren't alone, and we can make it out of it. We can come home and be here in the moment and not be stuck back there. And it's possible, because I'm feeling that what I'm doing right now, sitting here at this microphone, is part of that possibility.
To other Vietnam veterans, I would say, hang in there and be proud of what you did, and don't be afraid to tell people about it, even if they don't want to listen to you. If necessary, just shove it down their throats, because the public has to understand. And to the public in general, I would say, never forget what we learned in Vietnam, that wars can be wrong, and that if people in this country don't learn that lesson, then what we went through will have been in vain. But if they do learn that lesson, and I think that a lot of people in this country have, then maybe by our experience in Vietnam, by what we went through, we achieved a greater victory than any other war.
Remember the time you let me borrow your new car and I smashed a fender? I thought you'd kill me, but you didn't. And remember the time I spilled my Coke on your new rug? I thought you'd kill me, but you didn't. Remember the time I flirted with the guys to make you jealous? I thought you'd drop me, but you didn't. And the time you brought me to the beach and said it would rain, and it did. I thought you'd scream, I told you so, but you didn't. I wanted to make all those things up to you when you came home from Vietnam, but you didn't.
Our society owes a great debt to the veterans of the Vietnam era. They accepted their duty as citizens when they were called, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. Many were ridiculed for their decision to serve during an unpopular, controversial war. Upon their return home, many more faced apathy, even hostility, after making the great sacrifices our country asked them to make. Perhaps some will never understand why we did it. Maybe that doesn't even matter now, but we did it because we loved America. America, it's time that you love us.
Well, come on, all of you big, strong men. Uncle Sam needs your help again. Yeah, he's got himself in a terrible jam. Way down yonder in Vietnam. So put down your books and pick up a gun. Gonna have a whole lot of fun. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Yeah, come on, Wall Street, don't be slow. Why, man, this is war a go-go. There's plenty good money to be made by supplying the army with the tools of his trade. Just hope and pray that if they drop the bomb, drop it on the Viet Cong. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. The next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die. Come on, mothers throughout the land, pack your boys off to Vietnam. Come on, fathers, and don't hesitate. Send your sons off before it's too late. You can be the first ones in your block to have your boy come home in a box. And it's 1, 2, 3. What are we fighting for? Don't ask me, I don't give a damn. Next stop is Vietnam. And it's 5, 6, 7. Open up the pearly gates. Well, there ain't no time to wonder why. Whoopee, we're all gonna die.
This program was produced by Bill Barrett and Steve Kingsbury. I arrived in Vietnam in May of 1967 and stayed until November 1968. I was with the 372nd Radio Research Company, 25th Infantry Division. This